Drinking alcohol, smoking, and drug use are harmful to health.
The house on Briar Lane had been empty for 12 years when the Halloways bought it. Not abandoned, not condemned, just empty, like a lung that had forgotten how to breathe. The realtor, a thin woman with a smile too wide for her face, called it a rare opportunity. She never used the word cheap, but the price was half what any sane person would pay for a 4-bedroom Victorian with original hardwood and a widow's walk. Daniel and Mara signed the papers the same afternoon. Their daughters, Lily, 16, and Claire, 9, stood in the echoing foyer while dust drifted down like slow gray snow. The first night, they heard nothing. On the second night, Daniel woke at 3:07 a.m. to the sound of someone walking the upstairs hallway. Soft, deliberate steps, the way a person moves when they believe no one is listening. He sat up, heart kicking. Mara slept beside him, mouth slightly open. The footsteps paused outside their bedroom door, then retreated. He told himself it was Lily sneaking to the bathroom. He told himself that 3 times before he could fall back asleep. In the morning, Lily asked why he had been pacing the hall at 3 in the morning. "I thought that was you," he said. She looked at him as though he had spoken in another language. The whispers began a week later. They were gentle at first, almost affectionate, like a parent murmuring lullabies through plaster. Mara heard them while she unpacked china in the dining room. A woman's voice, low and lilting, saying her name again and again. Ma, ra, ma, ra. She stood motionless with a plate in her hands until the plate slipped and shattered. When she bent to gather the pieces, the voice was gone, but the air felt thick, as if someone had just left the room. Claire discovered the walls liked to talk to children best. She sat cross-legged in the upstairs playroom, one of the smaller bedrooms they had painted butter yellow, and pressed her ear to the flower-patterned wallpaper. The voices came in overlapping threads, some angry, some pleading, some laughing in a way that made her stomach hurt. "Do you hear them?" she asked her stuffed rabbit, Mr. Fluff. Mr. Fluff did not answer, but the wall did. "They're listening," it whispered. "They always listen." Daniel tried to laugh it off. Old houses settle, pipes knock, wind moves through cracked windows like breath. He was a high school history teacher. He trusted facts the way other men trust God. But every night, the footsteps returned, heavier now, impatient, and the whispers grew bolder. They no longer waited for silence. They spoke over the television, over music, over the ordinary noise of living. One Thursday in October, Daniel came home late from parent-teacher conferences and found Mara standing in the kitchen with every cabinet door flung open. She was staring at nothing, her lips moving. "What are you doing?" he asked. "They told me where the good knives are," she said, voice dreamy. "The ones that don't dull." He took her by the shoulders and steered her upstairs. That night, he lay awake and listened to the house speak in Mara's voice from somewhere downstairs, calling his name sweetly, the way she had the first time they met. He crept to the landing. The lower floor was dark and silent. When he returned to bed, Mara was sitting upright, eyes wide. "You were downstairs," she whispered. "Why were you calling me?" They installed a security system the next day. Motion sensors, cameras, the works. The alarm never triggered, but the cameras caught things. A door opening by itself at 2:13 a.m. A child-sized shadow crossing the hallway, too quickly to be Claire. The slow drift of a woman's silhouette in the upstairs window, long after everyone was asleep. Lily began sleeping with headphones on, volume cranked until her ears rang. It didn't help. The voices learned to speak inside the music, threading themselves between guitar chords and drum beats. They told her secrets about her parents, the abortion Mara never mentioned, the student Daniel had kissed behind the gym in 2008, the way Claire used to hold her breath until she passed out when she was angry as a toddler. Lily screamed at her family across the dinner table one night, repeating every filthy detail. Claire started crying. Mara slapped Lily so hard her head snapped sideways. Daniel simply stared at his plate as if it might save him. After that, they stopped eating together. Claire took her meals in the playroom, sitting on the floor with Mr. Fluff. The walls there were kindest to her. They told her stories about the people who had lived in the house before. There was a doctor in 1918 who poisoned his patients for their insurance money. A mother in 1934 who bricked her crying baby into the chimney because the sound hurt her teeth. Twin boys in 1956 who hanged their little sister from the attic rafters to see if angels were real. A preacher in 1972 who cut out his wife's tongue so she would stop speaking in devil voices. Each story ended the same way, and the house kept them. The house always keeps them. Claire listened and nodded solemnly. She began answering the walls aloud. At first, Daniel and Mara thought it was imaginary friends. Then they realized she knew things no 9-year-old should know. The combination to Daniel's old high school locker, the pet name Mara's mother had whispered only on her deathbed. One afternoon, Claire came downstairs carrying a crayon drawing. It showed the 4 of them standing in the foyer, smiling. Behind them, dozens of pale faces pressed out of the wallpaper, like swimmers trapped under ice. "Look," Claire said proudly. "They wanted to be in the family picture." Mara took the drawing with shaking hands and burned it in the sink. The smoke smelled like burning hair. Winter arrived early that year. The house grew colder no matter how high they turned the heat. Frost feathered the inside of the windows in deliberate patterns. Handprints, mouths open in silent screams. Daniel started researching. He spent hours in the library basement, digging through microfiche and yellowed property records. The house had been built in 1893 by a surgeon named Ephraim Whitaker, who vanished along with his entire household one Christmas Eve. Every family since had either died inside or fled within 2 years. The ones who died did so creatively. Throats cut with bone-handled razors, bodies folded into trunks, a woman who chewed through her own wrists in the pantry. The ones who fled refused to speak of the place again. One man, before he was committed, scrawled a single sentence over and over in his asylum notebook. "The walls remember what we want to forget." Daniel printed everything he found and spread the pages across the dining room table like autopsy photos. That night, the house whispered through the vents in a chorus of voices, mocking him with his own research. "We remember, Daniel. We remember everything." He began drinking. Mara began taking the pills her doctor had prescribed after the miscarriage they never discussed. Lily locked herself in her room and carved shallow lines into her arms with a compass from geometry class, trying to let the voices bleed out. Claire alone seemed happy. She sang with the walls now, little nursery rhymes with new lyrics. "Ring around the rosy, pocket full of blood, ashes, ashes, we all stay home." December crept in, gray and airless. The family moved through the rooms like strangers sharing a train compartment. They no longer pretended everything was fine. They no longer pretended at all. On the shortest day of the year, the whispers stopped. The silence was worse. It pressed against their eardrums like deep water. Daniel walked the halls with a baseball bat, begging the house to speak. to threaten, to do anything but leave them alone with themselves. Mara sat in the kitchen and stared at the knives until dawn. Lily stopped cutting and started staring too, at the ceiling, at the corners, at the places where shadows pooled too thickly. Claire danced from room to room, humming, waiting. At 11:47 p.m., the lights went out. Not a flicker, gone. Every bulb, every appliance, the streetlights outside. The darkness was absolute. And then the voices returned, but they were not whispers anymore. They were inside the bones of the house, inside the family's skulls, loud enough to rattle teeth. "Come home," they said. "You are home." Daniel felt his legs carry him down the stairs, though he fought every step. Mara followed, smiling the way people smile in dreams they cannot wake from. Lily came last, barefoot, arms hanging loose. Claire skipped ahead, singing. They gathered in the foyer, beneath the chandelier, that hadn't worked since they moved in. Dust floated in the moonlight that suddenly poured through the windows as if a curtain had been pulled back. The walls rippled. Wallpaper peeled away in long strips, revealing not lath and plaster, but faces, hundreds of them, pressed into the surfaces like fossils. Men, women, children, mouths open, eyes rolled white. Some Daniel recognized from his research. Others were strangers. All of them were screaming without sound. Claire stepped forward and placed her palms against the nearest wall. The faces quieted, leaning toward her, the way flowers lean toward sun. "It's time," she said in a voice that was not entirely hers. The front door unlocked itself and swung open. Outside, snow fell upward, flakes rising into a sky, the color of old bruises. Daniel tried to grab Claire, but his hands passed through her as if she were made of smoke. Mara laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Lily began walking toward the open door, arms outstretched, tears freezing on her cheeks. Daniel screamed their names, but the house swallowed the sound. Claire turned back once. For a moment, her eyes were her own, terrified, 9 years old, begging. "Daddy," she whispered, "don't let them keep me." Then the walls inhaled. The family was pulled, not dragged, not forced, but drawn gently, inexorably, into the plaster. Their bodies flattened, merged, became part of the pattern. The wallpaper rolled itself back into place, seamless. The faces settled. The chandelier flickered on, crystals chiming softly, though no wind stirred. The door closed. Snow resumed its downward fall. In the morning, the house looked merely empty again. The realtor's sign went back up in the yard. Motivated seller. Must see. 12 days later, a young couple with a newborn came to view the property. The wife paused in the foyer, tilting her head. "Do you hear that?" she asked. Her husband listened. Somewhere far off, almost lost beneath the hum of the furnace, children were singing, "Ring around the rosy," "Pocket full of blood," "Ashes, ashes, we all stay home." He smiled. "Old houses," he said. "They hold echoes." They signed the papers that afternoon. The walls waited, patient as stone, listening for new names to learn.